brother?
Uh-oh. We're back!
What? Yeah.
I got a commercial just in time.
I know, right? Remotely here. This is great. So thanks for everyone for bearing with us. Bill moved to Arizona. I'm still in Washington. So we had a couple solo episodes and Carrie and I did one. So thanks for hanging in. We're going to be regular at this point. A lot more consistent now. We're getting the logistics worked out on this. It's challenging. Bill's been a wizard.
I'm gonna have
it's not easy.
I'll have a better studio, and this will all be. We're gonna clean all this up. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, exactly. But that's all right. So yeah, man, it's been almost 3 weeks. The last time I saw you was at ADCC and CJI.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
Fun. I'm sure the last couple days. The last couple days were so good, like especially the last day, all the finals are happening and stuff like that. I think you got plagued with a bit of a headache because the old Seth Daniels decided to make it a weird bass contest with the music.
I'm assuming it was him because it felt like a rave instead of watching a freaking grappling match, man. By the second day with that bass, man, just like, I don't mind. I'm a musician, man. I like music, man. But geez, dude, it was like rattling my sinuses. Yeah,
that was
so.
Brutal.
Anyway, yeah.
It was the songs that were like, and then you would wait for them. Like you think it's like maybe a 2-second hit or maybe 3, and it goes for 7-8 seconds. And I was reading on a lot of people's Instagram comments.
Yeah,
the people had to get up and like leave their seat because it was messing with them so much.
Well, it was it was, the bass was so loud it was resonating in people's skulls, man.
Especially old people. I mean, you guys are sensitive.
Yes. Dude, we're super sensitive, man. Yeah, I started having it was rough, man. I could barely even see, my head was hurting so bad. But anyway, that's just, maybe it's just my weakness, but I think it didn't add to the competition, put it that way.
Yeah, that's for sure. Speaking of old people, it was funny when I signed up or signed in to this thing and then you joined. My computer literally said potential virus alert, pedophilia, and all that kind of stuff. It was weird. As soon as your face came on the screen, it was thinking there was some sort of illegal activity or virus that came on.
I wonder if just facial recognition got me, man.
That's what I'm thinking.
The AI. Yeah, Yeah, well, I am sharing property now with a dude with a panel van, so maybe
true.
It's by association.
That's the man we call Everett Logan.
Yeah, we love having them here, man. It's great. So
they're such good people that it's funny, for people that don't know, Everett, Washington it's nice, but it used to not be nice. It used to be kind of like nothing but homeless and gangs and all this kind of stuff, and it's been gentrified real strong. And the marina's super nice, the downtown's nice. Now there's still pockets of little hordes of the transients and the drug addicts and
the
stuff.
Day walkers. Yeah,
our day walkers at QFC. But we end up having a couple guys like who we call Everett Logan, which he's basically Wolverine. He's a little bit of a curmudgeon at times, and he kind of talks raspy and all that kind of stuff. So he's like Logan, the Wolverine character. And then we also have what we call, but he's like the Make-A-Wish Logan, right? He's not an actual superhero. He's from Everett. And then we have...
You're lucky you're in fucking, excuse my language, you're lucky you're in Arizona, dude.
Well, that's why I can say all this. I'm free.
I know.
I'm not getting my ass kicked by anybody right now. And then
that's right. People are like, I'm gonna see you in the gym, son. Nope.
Not for another year. Hopefully you got a good memory. And then we have Everett Chris Pratt. You know who that is?
I mean, there's a lot of candidates, but Which one? I mean,
He's the one that looks closest like Chris Pratt, and that's our friend Lawrence Edwin Walmsley.
oh, yes.
If you squint your eyes, he looks kind of like Chris Pratt was on meth.
Lawrence doesn't look like he's on meth, you piece of
No, I
shit.
said if you squint your eyes.
Oh, okay.
If you open
I
your
don't
eyes,
have to,
you're
man.
no.
I have bad vision, so maybe,
So he
who
always looks
knows?
that way to you. That's good.
Yeah. No, man. No, we have awesome people here, man. And it's nice having we have our little apartment unit on our property that, you know, I get to hang out with the Everett Logan, so
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah,
And his significant other, she's awesome too.
yeah. They're all
So
right.
yeah, you know, so I'm not using. I don't want to diamond people out on podcasts, but anyway, dude, you are doing a lot of the things right now that we've talked about on episodes before. So you've moved to a new location, finding a new gym.
Mm,
Not only that, but being a black belt, finding a new gym. Tell me how that's all been, man. Kind of,
gosh, I talked about it a little bit on last week's episode, but
yeah.
it's honestly, I feel like when we've gotten visitors, black belt visitors, it seemed like it was really easy. Like I don't know why people always seem so calm and so chill. It's been nerve wracking for me, and I don't know
Mm,
if that's just a product of my own mindset and stuff like that, but it's been tough, man. I've been really surprised by, because especially being someone that cross trains so much, so I'm used
mm,
to like I'm used to being in unfamiliar scenarios when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
sure.
And I can't imagine if I didn't have that experience what I would be feeling right now. Because it has
This is
just
why I'm
been,
talking about it.
yeah, it's been honestly, it's been a little overwhelming at times. I've started to get more comfortable for sure. I did that
Yeah.
podcast with a couple of guys on the BJJ Foxcast, which was nice because you start to get to know people a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm still very reserved in the gym. I'm not. Uh, they're not getting the full bill yet.
I would say they're probably not getting 10%. You can freaking scare people away, dude. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I exactly, and I don't want to get kicked out immediately. I don't want
Yeah.
to rub someone the wrong way, because you got to find like who
You're
shares.
kind of like kimchi of jujitsu, dude. You're like, I love it, but it was an acquired taste.
Yeah,
And
and it can be
it
good
took a
for
long
you.
time. And I was like, I don't know about this at first. And I'm like, it's a little weird. And then now I really like it.
Yeah, and you feel like, you know what, it's kind of good for me. But then also the first
Yeah.
couple times you go down that road, you might shit yourself
And it smells quite a bit. So, I
a
mean,
lot.
these analogies work. It's working really well. I think this is a very appropriate analogy.
So another thing,
Yeah.
speaking of all that, is how much we sweat down here. It's incredible. I've gone to 6 scoops a day of ballast,
Yeah.
and drinking. I think this is like 64 ounces, 2 of
Yep.
these things, and
It looks 48 though, but that's
oh,
okay.
maybe 48. Yeah.
Yeah. You see my calibrated eye. See how good that was?
I mean, that is pretty good. I am
I
definitely
know.
gonna try to prove you wrong though.
Okay. Okay.
So it's incredible. Now I am at a gym that has not the best AC like ventilation, but still, it doesn't matter if I've cross trained. That you're just dumping sweat immediately, because there's no, all these gyms, they're made typically for like office spaces or something like that,
Mhm.
and then
Yep.
you're putting 35 people exerting effort, so that no AC system can keep up with that unless it's like
Yeah.
industrial or something.
Right.
So it is. I actually I went to one place. I dropped in, and I I think maybe I told you this. My kidneys hurt for the next 2 days, like the right above the love handles, kind of in the back there, on both
Yeah.
sides. More so on the right side, my right side, but it was kind of scary because I hadn't
You got
really
dehydrated, dude.
like
Yeah.
that bad, and I drank
Yep.
all the ballast. I drank a full one of these during training. I had my normal probably 24 ounces plus of water before training. So I feel like I was adequately hydrated normally, but I
Yeah,
trained at a
but you're
gym. Yeah.
that so acclimation's a real thing, man. Perfect example. My last duty station in the Navy in 2012 was in Central Valley, California. Pretty similar to what you're dealing with now. I mean, in June, I think when we left up there in June, it was 112,
Mm,
and we went up to Washington in late June, and it happened to be one of these Washington Junes where it was like 55 and raining. And we froze, man. And and then in the summer, it got up to like 80, and people were like, oh my gosh, it's hot. We're like, are you kidding me? This is amazing. But now, you know, 12 years in, like today is like a quote unquote heat wave. People in Arizona will be cracking up. It's just barely cracking 90, right?
mm,
And people are dying out there. And now I'm like, man, it's hot. So it's going to work in reverse for you because you're going to have the cooling, the hypothalamus regulates that, temperature
mm.
regulation, right? And you'll get used to it to the point where you'll probably, next year, this time, you'll probably be not sweating as much and your body's like, okay, and able to kind of cool it a little better without the excessive dump of water, right? So, but that's what's going on with this kidney pain, man. Even with all that, you still got dehydrated.
Yeah, and I was dropping in at a gym that literally didn't have AC, and it happened to be 115 on that day.
Oh,
And they had just
oh my
one of
God.
those huge industrial fans, but that just is whatever. And I did. It was an open mat, so all I was doing was sparring. And Olivia kind of freaked me out because she was like, "If you start feeling kidney pain, you need to address that like ASAP."
Yeah. You're volume depleted, dude. Yeah, you really do. And um, I can only imagine, guys like myself and Jake and other folks that sweat up here,
Hmm.
I we would probably die. I don't know. We'd
Yeah,
have to
you're
run
not
around with
allowed.
IVs in our arms or something, dude.
You're not allowed down
Yeah.
here unless it's
Yeah.
October and later.
Yeah. I think it's
Because
gonna be a window for us, right? You gotta like,
yeah,
hey, sorry, brother, just for your own health, dude. I can't allow you to come down.
yeah. Like right now, it
Mm.
says it's 11 o'clock and it's 105, but it's I believe from what I'm hearing, basically you get through September and then October it literally just out of nowhere it's 90s. So you're not in
Right.
that 100 plus. And I've even noticed because we've had a few days where there's like overcast and stuff where it will be 90 or 90. It hasn't been in the 90s. It's basically been 100 to 102 at the lowest during the peak
Mhm.
daytime on like an overcast day. And the difference between 102 with a little bit of cloud cover and 112 is insane. I wouldn't think it would be that much different, but it absolutely is.
Yeah, dude, the only thing I can, I did live in Central California, but it still wasn't average that hot. The only thing I can compare it to is when I went to the Middle East in the Navy and arrived in Bahrain and walked out of the plane. It was like 122 or something preposterous, right? And it just
Yeah.
hits you like a gut punch. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. So just be careful, man. And everyone listen to this. If you are, relocated or traveling around and you're in a new environment, whether it's temperature, whether it's altitude, because that can happen too, right? All of a sudden you're in Denver rolling and you're like, I'm gassed, man.
I was wondering,
Yeah.
we're about, I think we're 1,500 feet
Mhm.
roughly above sea level. Is that a noticeable amount?
Probably not. I mean, when you start looking at like 7,000,
Okay.
right? And I think like when my daughter moved down to the Denver area, she noticed it, and especially going hiking when some of her hikes were up to 12 and 14.
Yeah.
And now she's acclimated with, erythropoietin, which is our, makes red blood cells and stuff. It's a kind of a hormone that gets upregulated in those people. That's why people train at altitude, right?
Mm.
They
I
get
was
that little extra bump.
I was using it as an total excuse. I would tell people, "Man, I'm just not used to the heat, and then we're elevated
Of
up
course.
here, man. I'm starting to feel it."
Ah, all right, then I'll go with it. I'll support your excuse.
Thank you. If I can edit
Sure.
that later.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll do
So
what you want.
with the
Yeah.
kidney thing, though, because my kidneys
Uh-huh.
hurt for the next 2 days
Yeah.
after training. And I was obviously
Yeah.
really like Olivia was making me drink a ton of all these electrolytes and all that. But
Hmm.
what's a warning sign to be like, because I mean, she really made it sound like this could be really serious if it doesn't get better. What are
So
some things to look for there?
that's a great warning sign is start to have like kind of kind of that achy kidney pain. You know, Kidneys need a certain amount of volume, blood flow. There are cases where people can go into, acute kidney failure with extreme hydration. I mean, dehydration. So, if that starts to, and you have a recent history of just dumping a ton of sweat, and then now you're starting to have kidney pain, you really need to get some sustained rehydration going on.
Mm,
They'll recover, but you just gotta be careful. And here's another point: when you're in that state, the worst thing you can do, you're like, oh, I got some pain, I'm gonna take some ibuprofen. Negative, dude. Those NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, if you have any kind of compromised kidney function, even temporarily, that can make it a lot worse. You got to be super careful with that. I saw someone in the hospital that already had stage 2 or stage 3, what we call renal insufficiency, which means, the kidneys aren't working so well from other causes like diabetes. And I remember an intern, this guy was in pain in the middle of the night. So the intern ordered Toradol, which is a very potent um, anti-inflammatory, and the dude went into kidney failure.
oh, jeez.
Right. Yeah. So then they had to rescue that. So that's just kind of a public service announcement, really in a dehydrated state, you really want to stay away from those non-steroidal anti-inflammatories
Dang.
until
Okay.
yeah, they have a lot of problems too, just long-term and short-term. I'm not a huge fan of them, but
Mm.
as you know, I've talked about it before.
Yeah, because those are the ones that really affect the liver, right? Like you can really overdo them.
Yeah,
And
one of the hit, well, acetaminophen more so for liver toxicity, the Tylenol.
mm, hmm
But ibuprofen, naproxen, all those non-NSAIDs, so to speak, those actually are cleared by the kidney, and they can have some significant effects on kidney function. So
mm,
you got to be careful with those, especially if you're even temporarily compromised. And plus, I've talked about it before. I mean, people using them for injuries and stuff like that, especially, that you need an inflammatory response for healing, and that kind of delays things.
yeah,
So disrupts gut microbiota, is hard on the lining of the stomach, long-term use, risk of stroke and heart attack. I mean, they're not benign drugs, and we've gotten to the point where we treat them like they're like, candy, and they're not. So anyway,
yeah.
uh,
And we
I,
do.
I,
Well, we have a clip that you have done where we took it out of another podcast that people can see, and it's labeled "Is inflammation good?" And you
yeah.
have about a 6-minute excerpt there of explaining why, obviously we typically will hear about inflammation being bad and how to combat it, but there is a point that our body has inflammation that from a repair process. So if people want, they
Well,
can
I'm
check that
about to
out.
quote my book, and you don't have the little thing to do the little sound
Damn
effect. I
it.
do, so I'm not going to do it. So one of the first chapters in Strong Medicine, we talk about the difference between chronic and acute inflammation, right? Where chronic inflammation is really a driver of disease, where acute inflammation is very, very important for wound healing, injury, that type of thing. It's a normal process that needs to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, I need to
Yeah.
get a bell to
You
ring.
need to see. Well, you'll get it all together. Right now, I'm in
Yeah.
control, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my own A-town, and I'll be able to.
I'll be like, damn it. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, I got far afield off that. Sorry, but it's an important subject to talk about, especially in your situation where you're down there, not acclimated yet, and training in a hot environment. You guys just be real careful with that.
Yeah, I'm like a broken record too. I say it to every single person I'm about to train with. I apologize, and I feel so dumb, but it's part of me is just like, it's like hard to breathe. A
Mm.
lot of guys told me that it will take about a year to
Yep.
acclimate. Some other guys that have actually moved here, so
Yep. That's what I was saying. About this time next year, you should be pretty good to go. And then
yeah.
you'll come up here like Superman. You're like, dude, you know.
Oh yeah, I'll
So
challenge Mo to a heat off because he always keeps the windows closed, and it would
yeah.
kill us. And now I'll be like, I'm ready for it.
Well, dude, Mo trained in Brazil, so yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
not only do we have that heat, but also the humidity, I think, is horrific there
and
too.
that was
That you guys
encouraging.
have.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
encouraging. Is some of the Brazilians that don't. It's not their home gym, the Paul Navas,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
the Aries, Arizona. They're at different Aries gyms that have better ventilation
Yeah.
and stuff. And when they've come in, I see them taking rounds off where they're like, dude,
Right.
and I talked to them and they were like, it's different in this room. This room is challenges your whole life existence. And once I saw that the Brazilians were doing that, I felt a little bit better about myself. That this gringo is
Yeah, as
not
a
just
gringo, yeah,
total.
you're like, all right, I'm hanging in. Okay.
Yeah,
That's funny, man. Well, good,
exactly.
man. So other things about this big move. I mean, I I talked about this in one of our more recent podcasts. We had another one of our friends, one of our purple belts, moved back east. Was having kind of a hard time fitting in with finding a good gym with the community and that whole thing because you know the bottom line is Cascade Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm sure there's other folks that agree with this for their own academies. Man, we have in a phenomenal community, right?
Hmm.
And trying to find that, it takes time. There's a lot of places that you're not going to have that instantly, but at least you want something with potential to kind of integrate, right?
For sure.
What do you think about that whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, we we visited down here last year, and
Hmm.
part of that visit was let's visit multiple gyms. So we already have some groundwork of figuring out where we would at least zero it into like a handful of gyms. So when we
Right.
come down permanently, that we kind of have an idea, and then we can start figuring out from there. So,
Mhm.
but I mean, I probably went to 6, 7 gyms before I even zeroed in on a couple. And out of that many gyms, I only had 2 that I was really considering.
Did
For
you just cut out on the thing you said? Did you say two? Is that what you
Yeah,
said? Two you're considering? Okay.
yep. I only had 2 once we narrowed it down out of those 7, let's say, that I was like, oh, these are going to work for me personally. There
Of course. It
are
doesn't mean, yeah.
Yeah, and there's tons of jiu-jitsu down here. It is crazy how much jiu-jitsu is here and how many high-level like professionals have gyms like Marcio Andre,
Mhm.
obviously Megaton
Mhm.
Diaz, Cashinho, there even more. Um, but I feel like you can find good jiu-jitsu anywhere, and it's for me, it wasn't about like obviously I don't want to go to a gym that I'm the best one in the room, right? I want to
Right.
go to a gym I
No.
can develop and stuff like that. But ahead of that is culture for sure. And that's why I immediately got narrowed down to only a couple. Not that the other gyms were
Yeah.
bad, but for me to
It's nothing to do with
go,
that.
yes, it's for me to go daily.
People are looking for different things in their gyms. And, for us, I think, you and I talked extensively about it. For me, gym culture is absolutely far and away the top thing for me
Hmm.
of importance.
What does that
So
mean?
yeah, and
Gym culture. Like, what do you mean by
yeah,
that?
just yeah. So the overall vibe of the gym, where um, there's some people that run academies, and like I said, there's to each their own, but they're very much a business. They do their thing, they teach their class, you leave, right? It's very much, it's like going to, like, I don't know, I'm trying to get a good analogy, but it's not, you know, people do form, friendships and bonds, but the whole vibe of it is not like, hey, this is a family type of thing, where, a lot of us have formed, really strong relationships outside of class here. We have a lot of husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend type of training together, as opposed to like these people that are like, very competition oriented, a bunch of kind of aggro type, which nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do,
Hmm.
that are very much into, every match is, we're getting after it 100%. You know, it's also it comes from the top too. It depends on what the head professor's, kind of philosophy is. And so um, we have a community in our gym that goes beyond jujitsu. I would say, we've and it's hard to yeah when you say culture, that type of thing. And where if someone, for instance, like our professor, like one of our younger students, just started a new car detailing business, and Andrew at the end of class said, "Hey," and just made an announcement. So and so has this new thing, not trying to sell anything, but just supporting people, man. Just he didn't have to
Hmm.
do that, and
Yeah.
talking about people's birthdays and jokingly Shark Tanking them, and
Hmm.
bringing donuts in. I mean, it's all these little things that make that place a home and
Hmm.
not just a place to train. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think some churchgoers might be able to relate to that. Where if you are in
Yeah.
it's just a community. It's a form of community, and at some churches, like you're just in and out, and you don't talk to anybody, and maybe that's what you want out of it. But then there's a lot of people
Mhm.
that they go to something like that for the community, for the fellowship, and stuff like that, and that's what's valuable to them. And I would say that's pretty similar to at least where we're at in our lives is when we are looking for a gym. Are there people you said something there that was actually perfect was Olivia and I were noticing, are people just sitting around BSing after and like talking and like having their little social hour, after training? If
Yeah.
not, that kind of spoke volumes to us. And if they
Yep.
did, it was like, oh, okay, this is actually a close community where
Right.
there's people doing going deeper than just we're training partners in jiu-jitsu. And
Well, yep.
go ahead.
Like if something bad happened, let's say that some of our gym members, someone was going through something really rough. We have people that have their back, right? And will
Hmm.
come in and try to help regardless of what it is, right? And it's not even asked. They're like, hey, and it gets around quick. Hey, so and so's having a rough time with this. Is anybody,
Yeah.
and you kind of rally around people. And that is what I'm talking about. And that is actually a pillar of health. When you look at people with wellness and health, you have nutrition, you have exercise, you have sleep, you have stress management, but a big pillar of this is also community, right? And it's shown that it's actually super beneficial for your actual health. So
Yeah.
that's what this our place up here is to me. So
Hmm.
yeah, and it's always good to talk. I know we've talked about this before, but it's interesting now that you are going through it, not just theoretical, right? And so I
Hmm.
thought that would be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. And one of the real difficult parts is you want to be yourself. You want to put yourself out there, but well, at least if you're kind of squirrely like me, I can't because I will offend someone. Like especially nowadays, because I joke a lot and I don't take
Yep.
things too seriously. Obviously, people that listen to the podcast know that, and
Yeah.
you can make fun of me. I'm gonna make fun of you. Like that's how I become close. Like if I start making fun of you and like throwing jabs at you, that means I am like a dog, and I am now like I look at you as like a close friend.
Like you want to play catch? Yeah.
Yes,
You want to throw the ball?
yeah. So I'm gonna insult your mother, and then you insult mine,
That's
and
right.
now we're
Well,
playing catch.
I live with a lady who this is a sport in our house.
Yeah,
That's how we show affection. So, and it's
exactly.
that way in our gym. But I know what you mean because where, if you were having a conversation with Carrie, you can say, whatever you say, she's not going to go home offended
Yeah.
because she knows you deep down that you are a good person and you don't, we joke around. You don't mean anything bad by it, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, for sure.
But when you're in that new scenario, it's kind of like
Yeah, got
you
to feel it out.
yeah, because you don't like I don't want to make someone upset. Like I don't want so like whether I think it's silly that they get upset that I make a silly joke or not. That's not the point. It's I don't I don't want someone to feel uncomfortable. So
You would feel terrible
yeah, yeah. But
because you're a nice person, but that's your personality is very, like mine is. And very similar when I got out of the Navy in 2012 as a doctor, I had to put a huge filter on for a couple years talking to civilian patients because, man, let me tell you, it is a different interaction,
yeah.
right? And so it's the same kind of thing. You're kind of feeling out, and then eventually you'll find your crew, and who you kind of know who you probably want to be a little more reserved, and that's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that, and who you can kind of just let it all hang out, so to speak.
You know how I tested these guys was I went on that
Uh-oh.
BJJ Foxcast with one
Yeah.
of the owners of a sister school,
Yeah.
Aries East Mesa. So the gym I've been going to, Paul Nava's, that's in Mesa, Arizona, and
Hmm.
I think like 14 miles away is Aries East Mesa, which is one of Paul Nava's black belts, Alex Martinez, and he's the one that is the one of the hosts on the Foxcast uh, podcast, and then him and Tojo. And so I, in the first 20 minutes, if you listen to that podcast, you'll hear I told the urology story about the.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh yeah. I know it well.
I just came out the gates with that bad boy. And especially because we were talking about. We were talking about something jujitsu related, and they were
Yeah.
like, they said they mentioned a butt, and I was like, actually, speaking of butts, I got a funny story.
And we are like, Bill, you don't really need that type of an exam for.
Oh, well, they didn't, they didn't understand that, but I told him I was like, so my podcast partner, he's a physician, he told me that wasn't necessary. So I got my beehole touched by some old guy.
That was
Who's,
your Me Too movement moment.
yeah, I'm a survivor,
Jeez, dude.
and the
Oh my gosh.
so that was how I kicked off that podcast. And it's almost like I'm like putting a reel out there to like see like, okay, who do I got here? You know, are they gonna like be super weirded out or are they gonna laugh?
Okay. I got a story that segues perfectly into this, and it's at my own expense.
Okay.
So we have some of our really good friends. We have Brittany, we've had on our podcast before. She's a brown belt, and her husband is a brown belt as well. Super good friends of ours. She actually cuts my hair. Well, I started getting my hair cut again with her, and I set up an appointment, and I was like, on text, I'm like, "Hey, do you have anything open?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, sure. How about the 3rd?" And usually in the past, because of my days off, I know it has to be like a Monday or something, right? Well, we were both got our wires crossed. I assumed this last Monday was the 3rd. It wasn't. It was the 2nd. Because the 3rd I have to work, right? So I didn't even look at a calendar. I'm like, okay, well, that must be Monday then. So Carrie happened to be off on Labor Day. So she's like, I'll just go with you and then we'll go to Open Mat. So I show up at 9 a.m. knocking on her door. And she's like, what are you doing? She was so nice.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, my haircut appointment. She goes, that's the 3rd. I'm like, isn't that today? She's like, no. And then that whole thing. So you know what I felt like? And she was so nice that she cut my hair. That's the kind of friends we're talking about. So I sent her a little meme with Christmas Vacation when they just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. They show up at Clark's door. But this is the type of, this is the type of relationships we form, right? Where I'm such an idiot. I'm like, hey,
I can imagine too.
it couldn't be nicer people. Like, oh no, it's fine.
Well,
I
and
felt
part of
horrible.
us, we kind of understand. You're old, senile, and
I used that excuse too. I was like, oh my gosh.
like when you run
And
red
Carrie's
lights.
like looking at me, shaking her head. She's like, oh my
Oh, I can't
God.
imagine. She put that in her back pocket for sure.
Oh, it's there. Trust me. Yeah, she's going to use that one later. But it was hilarious.
Do you
But anyway,
think?
so yeah. Go ahead.
Do you think Brittany never wants you to tell people that she's your hairdresser because the weird shape of your head, or do you think
Yeah,
she doesn't mind?
yeah. I don't think she minds. I think she's a professional.
Mm.
She'll just get it done. She's like, yeah, that dude has this, even with this weird hit. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll try to do the best I can with what I got here. It's kind of like giving an artist, crayons,
Yeah.
as opposed to these, the high, all the, high end type of materials they usually use. Yeah. So
Yeah.
she's doing the best she can. Or it's like it's like commissioning an artist to draw a stick figure for you. That's probably better analogy. And she gladly draws the stick figure,
Yeah.
verbally and says, all right, well, this is what I can do for you, man. That's about it.
What's funny is I was just thinking, so unfortunately Alex, so he's 51. He uh he basically took all of the pent up energy and old man insults I had for you. He just
Mm.
took them on the chin. And in that podcast, I started talking about how I could tell he has Down syndrome by a little bit of droop in his face. The eyeballs are a little separated. Like, it started to get pretty good.
Yeah, and I wasn't there to correct you and say that's not trisomy 21, you dummy. That's probably more like Bell's palsy.
Yeah. Yeah. I asked him if he was vaccinated. So
Oh my! Oh, good on you, man. So
yeah, good on
you
you.
showed yourself.
Um,
Nice.
I wanted to I want to change gears a little bit because we got a couple
Yep.
pertinent questions that I wanted to answer.
Okay.
We got a
Yep.
little bit of a or stockpile, but there's two that I wanted to get a response from you on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read one of the questions
Let's do it.
it's a little bit longer question, but I'm just going to read through it. I started, this is from Andrew B., not our professor. I started BJJ 3 months ago and I'm hooked. I'm 33. Never before have I felt like the old guy until I started rolling with 24-year-olds. Yeah, that's real. I'm also 245 pounds and 5'5". So definitely out of shape to say the least. I recently got my hormones checked and was at 239 and just over 300 on the recheck SHBG. Or excuse me. So he was 239, then he got rechecked and was only at 300. His SHBG was low, but everything else in range. which
Yep.
I'm sure we'll touch base on that, what that means. And then he says,
Mm-hmm.
but they said I should get checked for sleep apnea and fix BMI. So I go to the pulmonologist and they fix
Yep.
my BMI. I've been trying to fix
What?
BMI. I'm not quite sure what this means.
What
I've
does
been
that mean? You don't. It's
how do you
losing weight, basically.
okay. Odd way to say it though. And even for the physicians too.
The pulmonologist won't fix your BMI.
Yeah. So he says,
No worries.
I've been trying to fix BMI for a
Okay.
long time, but having the energy to cook and do things I need to are lacking. So it feels like a big circle. Brother, completely understand. He goes on. I get constant 8 hours of sleep every night and still exhausted and unmotivated every day, which I'm sure you're going to touch base on that. I also
Yep.
deleted social media and dumbed down the phone. Good call. I eat good, clean foods. I can pronounce all the ingredients. I have three. I have three your kinds that are stressful, but that's really it. I feel like spinning my wheels here. I have three your kinds that are stressful, but that's really, I'm not sure what he means there. Um, but he feels like he's spinning his wheels because he feels, oh, there's the cat. He
Yep.
gets he feels like he's getting 8 hours of sleep, but he's still exhausted and unmotivated. He said, I
Yep.
also started looking into finding a functional medicine doctor near me, but I just can't afford
Good.
it right now. How do you know which problem to focus on first
Okay.
and going forward?
Yep. Sleep, number one. And so if a patient tells me that they think they're sleeping through the night, but they wake up exhausted, you likely do have sleep apnea. So the pulmonologist should have ordered a sleep study on you. And what that will do is they'll monitor you and see how many you probably have like innumerable amounts of waking, or at least dropping you out of the deep sleep stages into these, and it's a terrible term, shallow sleep, like stage 1 or stage 2, right? Where if you're not getting stage 3 sleep, which used to be stage 4, but they've combined, American Sleep Academy has combined 3 and 4 together. For those of you that are geeks and know this stuff, the stage 3 is like delta wave sleep. And that's usually the first, most prevalent in the first part of the night. And that's where most of your growth hormone secretion happens. And that is one of your biggest fat burning hormones. So if you're in so-called, like, if you're not getting that delta wave sleep, not only are you not going to be rested, but when you wake up, but you are not getting the beneficial effects of sleep has on your body composition. And you're probably in a stress state with high cortisol levels because of that, which also goes the opposite way of weight loss. Trust me. I mean, it does the opposite. Cortisol wants to hang on to stuff, hang on to energy. It's a stress, like I said, it's a stress hormone. So get a sleep study. And even temporarily, if you need your apnea treated, you got to do it, because that will turn you around quick. Sleep disruption leads to weight gain, diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure, heart disease, all these chronic diseases long term. So that's number one for you. You got to get that sorted out. And if it means getting on a CPAP for a short period of time while you're trying to lose body weight, absolutely. So BMI, body mass index, is not the best indicator because I'm considered overweight. Um, I'm probably 10% body fat. I'm 5'8", 180 pounds, but I'm considered overweight because it doesn't account for muscle mass. What I would do with you is do something called the waist height ratio. Your height always stays the same, unless you're like me and as you age, you actually do shrink a little bit, but in general. And then you do a waist measurement right around your belly button. And it's easier to do in centimeters. So if you convert your height to centimeters and your waist to centimeters, it's easier to get decimal points so you can track progress. Your waist height ratio So, for instance, let's just use inches just to make it simple for the listeners out here. So, if I'm 68 inches tall, right, what's half of 68? It's 34,
Yeah.
right? So, if you divide, if you make a fraction from your waist and your height, 34 over 68, that's 0.5. So basically, your ratio should be 0.5 or under. And that is a better indicator for long-term metabolic health or anything like that. So if you are, what do you say, he's 5'5"?
Yeah.
So if he's 55 inches, half of 55, what is that, 27.5?
Hmm.
That, you think about what that is. That's actually your 0.5, right? And so if you measure, and that's in inches, right? So if you measure your waist measurement, that's a better way to track things. That should be your goal, not your weight. Body mass index it works for a certain part of the population, but it's not a really good measure. Just to, since we talked about BMI, I thought that I'd bring that up. So
Yeah.
for him, first thing is sleep. You'll start to notice, if you get that corrected, you'll start to notice weight loss by eating so quote unquote clean. Then I would have to look at your nutrient timing. So in general, if you have a hard time losing weight, most people are have some carbohydrate intolerance slash insulin resistance, right? And that's where that cyclic kind of low carb thing works that you and I have talked about a bunch, and you've done it yourself,
Hmm.
right, Bill?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah. And
you do protein, fat, and fiber on your non-training days, and then your training after your post-training meal is like a protein and starch just to refill muscle glycogen.
yeah.
But
And
that works really, yeah,
well, I was gonna say, and also it's such a good way to, especially if you're like me, I have a sweet tooth. I can ruminate on, oh, I'm never going to be able to eat delicious foods again, like pasta and stuff like that. It's not
yeah,
true. You're going to be able, especially because you're in the sport that you're in now, you're going to be able to eat some of those foods that are delicious. You just have to do them at the
yep,
right times and have to
yep.
have a little bit of portion control. We don't want to, go too crazy, but and all that's going to relate to is how fast do you want results? Okay. Yes, you can go to Conto's and get their oven baked uh, spaghetti with all the cheese and all that kind of stuff after training. If you want to lose weight even faster, though, and have results even faster, you're going to do ground beef and white rice. And
Perfect.
you
Exactly.
so you're still going to get your starchy carbs and refeed well, and you're still going to do all that, but it just depends on how fast you want results. So you can have your, Chris and I don't really like cheat days. We don't really like to go down that road and call it that. It's because it's lifestyle. And so if you're going to have carbs and you want to have some of those fun carbs, just do it at the right time. That's what it comes down to.
And make sure your activity has earned it. So just sitting there
Yes.
drilling for a little bit, not doing some rolls, you need a requisite intensity to kind of deplete some of your muscle glycogen, which is a storage tank for sugar. So then, for instance, after our last open mat, Carrie and I had like steaks and like tri-tip and some rice. But now there was somewhere for that starch to go to refill the muscle glycogen for performance, and it wasn't hanging around being turned into triglycerides and stored as fat, right? So, what I also want to tell him about is going back to the sleep thing. If you do have sleep apnea, which I highly suspect you do, given what your symptoms are in the morning, um, that stress response will override your satiety mechanisms too and make you crave the things you're trying to avoid. And there's an evolutionary perspective for that, where from a hunter gatherer society, large portions of carbohydrate, whether it's honey or something like that, or a bunch of fruit, was not very common. So when they did happen upon them, we have a mechanism in our brain to override our satiety control almost like to store up. It's like feast or famine, right? It's like, because you don't know when your next meal is. So when you do encounter something very high in sugar type of starchy thing, you're going to gorge on it for survival benefit. But you take that wiring that we have in our brain and transport it into modern society when we're surrounded by all that stuff. It's a trap, right? And so then you get into a stress response from not sleeping. All that stuff is readily available. And then it's really hard to break that cycle because you're trying to override your brain's survival mechanism, right? And so it's a really important point to understand. It's called hormonal hunger. It doesn't mean your body needs energy. It's just trying to override your satiety and like store it for bad times. Does that make
Interesting.
sense?
Yeah, no, that's actually fascinating. So, and that's driven from poor night's sleep.
Absolutely. Because you're now in a stress response. It doesn't
Interesting.
matter the source of stress to a point. Stress is stress, whether it's not sleeping well, and that's even worse, not sleeping well, because then you're missing out on your big growth hormone secretion early in the night, which is actually a fat burning type of protein sparing, fat burning type of hormone.
Yeah.
So it's like a double whammy against that. And so I guess that's the long way of saying you got to get that sleep dialed in and figure out, even if short term, getting on something like CPAP to let you sleep, and everything, all those, that snowball will start rolling in the right direction for you. Because right now, you said it right in your question, it is a vicious cycle, right?
Especially even his testosterone numbers, I would suspect
Oh, I wanted
those
to
would.
talk about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let me back. So I would not look at any kind of replacement, because what you're having with that amount of body fat, you're producing likely very high levels of aromatase. Aromatase is an enzyme that takes testosterone and converts it to estrogen. And so your body could be making testosterone, but a large proportion could be being converted and not being used well. I would wait till you lean up a little bit and then see what your baseline looks like at that point, because you are still relatively young.
That's
I
that's
would be surprised if it did not improve significantly.
that's what I was just gonna say. Is I would suspect that just from the fat loss and just his
Yep.
hormones are so out of whack right now that even though
Right.
he feels like he's getting a constant 8 hours, as just through my sleep challenges, because I've always had poor sleep until the last few years when we've drilled down on it with Carrie. Um, I had the same exact thing, and I would beat myself up because I would wake up. I thought I slept through the night. I would beat myself up, and because I had the low energy, didn't feel like it was hard to even start working out or eat well, and then you beat yourself
Yep.
up, and then you eat like shit, and then the cycle just continues, and you don't really understand, or maybe you do get that workout in, and you're completely dead after,
Well,
and you're
right.
like,
And it's, well, and you're still stressing your body out under a stress response. It's a
yeah,
super vicious cycle here, right? And like you said, absolutely. So that's the kind of the cornerstone where I always start people. If there's even a hint that you're not sleeping well, um, that is, you absolutely have to address that first. And the pulmonologist really should have, if they, it didn't seem, I didn't hear it in your question, but they really should have ordered a sleep study on you. Most
well,
pulmonologists are also board certified in sleep medicine, or many of them are.
I mean,
And
they
so it's,
did say, they said I should get checked for sleep apnea and fix
yep.
BMI. So, and then he got to the pulmonologist. So I'm wondering, maybe Andrew, you could respond to this and let us know, did you do the sleep study? Have you scheduled it? Because that sounds like probably your first steps. If it's, I think he said that he's actually eating pretty good. So yeah, I eat good, clean foods. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just glossed over this. So for people who don't know, when you have apnea, you stop breathing, right? And you have these periods of time where you stop breathing during the night. Some people have hundreds of these. And then they'll wake up, they'll jolt themselves awake. Like if they're sleeping with their spouse, they can be, they're like jolting and making a kind of bunch of snorting noises because they're suffocating basically. And that brings you out. There's no way you're going to get deep sleep in that. People, like I said, people can have hundreds of these episodes a night. It is terrible for you. So that's what a sleep study will do, is it will monitor those apneic episodes and see how many is happening and how severe your sleep apnea is. The good thing about this is, even if you get on CPAP, which will help keep those airways open, temporarily, it gets you better sleep. But what's interesting is, as you lose weight, you'll likely, a lot of people have resolution of their apnea when they get down to a good, so they don't have as much problem anymore. But it's really important to get that checked out.
Yeah, and I'm sure he knows the severity of sleep apnea and stuff like that. But just
Mm.
I think I briefly mentioned it. I have a very close friend of mine. His dad passed just, I want to say it was 6 months ago or something like that, and he was only 62, I think, and he passed due to sleep
Jeez.
apnea. And he visually he carried a little extra weight, but he was just naturally a big guy. He was about 6'3". I want to say he's probably about 250, muscular, but he was diagnosed with sleep apnea. He had the machines in his apartment. As my friend had to go and clear out his dad's apartment, and he saw the machines, multiple different kinds, uh, and they weren't even open in the box. And
Yeah.
you know, it's a pretty serious freaking thing. And the cool thing is, you're on the path. You got all the things to fix all this, and to get better. The hard part's just doing
Yeah.
it. But
And I find, if you start the energy, because he mentioned energy, it's so hard to get the energy to do all these other things he thinks he needs to do. Once you get that sleep dialed in, that energy level is going to go through, it's going to go way up for you. And like I said, everything else is going to start to fall into place after that, because you'll feel like you have
yeah,
energy, and you know, to tackle all that stuff.
I'm gonna say it. Positive momentum. You start to get
Yep,
the
that's what it is.
momentum of just, okay, I got a little bit more energy today. I did. And you go to jiu-jitsu, and then instead of just, because let's say in the beginning, this is from my fat loss journey, is I wasn't I was eating McDonald's and stuff like that after training. Once I learned about nutrient timing, once you educated me on that,
Mm,
because I was outworking my diet at first. I was able to train so much, I was still eating shit and not nutrient
right,
timing and losing weight. But after about
right.
20 pounds, you hit a wall. So now I'm still about 200 pounds at 5'9", and I needed to then adjust to nutrient timing. So then I started eating. I ate a little cleaner for sure, but if I was going to have McDonald's or something like that, it was after like the noon day class, or it was after the night class, and that helped. But then my body composition, I was still holding on to some fat and stuff like that. Once I started, when I would do my training, and I would say, you know what, today I'm not going to just F off and have McDonald's or whatever delicious pizza. I'm just going to do my ground beef with rice. I found my sauces that I liked and started doing that. And that's when I really started to, like, my body comp really started changing. That last bit of belly fat started really going away. Like you said, if you go by BMI, you're considered obese, and
Well, I'm close. I'm
or
considered on the top end of overweight. Yeah.
yeah, you're overweight.
Obese is 30, BMI of 30 or higher. Yeah,
So,
but I'm in the high 20s.
which is insane. And
Yeah,
and myself, I'm an inch taller than you, but I'm on average maybe 5, 6 pounds lighter, and I'm considered overweight too. I don't carry as much
that's right.
muscle as you. I'm a little leaner, but either way, we have two fitness levels, especially for someone of your age and even mine. It's like that BMI stuff
Yep,
will just, it's almost like, if I can also recommend this, stay off the scale for the most part, and let's
absolutely.
do the things that you're laying out, and
G-
focus on
Get a cloth
composition
seat.
and energy.
I'll say, get it. get a tape measure that you can just measure your waist around your belly button. That's the only thing you should be following.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, stay off that damn scale. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Unless you're competing and you got to, weigh in, of course, but not for weight loss. Don't that becomes a weird thing. So just stay off of it.
Keep us in the loop, Andrew, if you can. Would
Yeah,
love to
man.
know more. Would love to know about the sleep study as well. Another question we had coming from the skeptical hippo is,
I love it. I love that name.
yeah, he says, I definitely feel a difference with my cardio on Shroom Tech Sport. I also use Alpha Brain for Muay Thai class. He says, I hope it helps me remember the combos. I'm wondering
Mhm.
if there are any follow-on effects for when you are not using them. I assume when he says follow-on, that's like a fall off of cognition or something. He
Mm.
says, oh, actually, he says right here, like a loss of cardio or less cognition when not on them. Also wondering what long-term effects they have. I assume he means potential negative effects.
Yeah. That is an awesome question. So to answer your last one first, they haven't been studied long enough. Um, especially let's talk about like Shroom Tech or things like that. I don't have the label in front of me, but any of those cardio enhancing kind of mushroom blends, the cordyceps is really the big one we've studied for increasing athletic performance as far as, quote unquote, cardio. Has definitely an effect, a good one. I don't know, taking it for long periods of time, if there are any adverse effects with that. I just haven't seen any long-term studies showing that, so I couldn't say. They're generally pretty damn safe, at least in the short term, what I've seen. Of course, like any other performance enhancing thing, um, yeah, if you're getting a bump from it and you stop taking it, it's probably going to go back to your baseline or, whatever your unenhanced performance is, for sure. The nootropic stuff like Alpha Brain, um, you know, I I tend to look at nootropics like, sticking with the mushrooms like lion's mane or something like that. I think they work really well. But again, I haven't seen any long-term studies on this stuff. My assumption would be in my own experiences when I stopped taking them, I don't, I definitely notice a difference. I don't get the effects. I'm a big person. I like to cycle my supplements anyway. Just as a I don't know if there's any strong science behind this, but just as a general principle, like I won't stay on one thing for a year, right?
Mm.
I'll cycle off of it to something else to try. Like, if you look at like adaptogens or something like that, like I won't stay on ashwagandha more than 2 months. Then I'll switch to like phosphatidylserine. If I'm doing, cordyceps, I'll maybe do that for a couple months. Right now I'm on a methylene blue kick, right? And it's
Yeah.
individual, like for what works for me and all that. But it's a good question. I don't know I mean, anything's possible, but I would say we're probably pretty okay with knowing what's going on with like cordyceps and things like that. I don't think there's going to do anything long term, but I couldn't be until I see studies showing opposite. I couldn't be sure.
I find anecdotally, because I take cordyceps every
Yep.
morning, and I do the same thing. I do about 2 months consistently, and then I'll jump off because that's typically about how long one of the containers
Yeah.
of cordyceps lasts. And then I'll
Yep.
do maybe 3 weeks or so. I'll jump off, and part of it is I'm like you. I want to notice. Like, do I notice actually something like
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit less cardio or something like that, and then also just to like maintain tolerance levels. So yeah, I'll do that. Lion's mane, I take a little bit more sparingly. I would say I take lion's mane maybe like 3 times a week. Typically, if I'm doing like the bigger classes that um, I want to like really be kind of aware to try to take on the technique
Yeah.
or something like that. or if we record or something like that, I'll do lion's mane in the morning.
Yeah. And Bill, we did a long time ago, we did a supplement episode on those. We had a couple performance type supplements, and you can go back and look at that. Like if you want to cycle off of like cordyceps and then try a little beta alanine, or just kind of do something a little different. I think that's a good thing. The body adapts to things you're using in general. It's just what it does. And sometimes certain things become less effective over time, depending on their mechanism. And so it's kind of nice to cycle them, to your point.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been using Cialis for a while. How has that been helping?
Why don't you ask Carrie about that?
No!
I'm not using.
Oh my goodness! I
I'm
didn't know
not
she was
using
taking
Cialis.
it. She takes it?
Yeah. No.
That's what you said.
No, I didn't say that.
That's what you said.
Try to get me in trouble. Okay. What the funny thing is, we can just play back the recording. I can show you I didn't say that.
The good thing is I control all the editing, my friend.
Yeah, but I have the hard copies here. No pun intended. Yeah.
That's
so
true.
no, I'm not taking it. Thank goodness I haven't needed it yet, man, because that's a thing too.
Well, easy,
Usually,
buddy.
yeah. And what's interesting, hey, speaking of which, that's a really important thing, right? And so, we don't talk about it enough, but if the healthier you can maintain your metabolic health, blood flow, the whole 9 yards, and get rid of systemic inflammation, the better all that works too. So
yeah. I mean, it's because that's going to fall into like your
testosterone levels,
hormonal stuff and all that. It's going to make it so your undercarriage is healthier and maintains.
The classic. This is the stereotype. The stereotype Cialis patient is like beer gut, pre-diabetes, high blood pressure or whatever, and now we're just going to use that pharmacologically as opposed to like, hey, maybe we could get our testosterone levels up, we could lose weight, and we could do all these other things, and maybe the function would be better. So
yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So would you say, so you don't know what's in Shroom Tech? You're not.
I would have to look it up. Honestly, I don't have on the back. I just know if we're looking at the best studied mushroom supplement for cardio, typically is cordyceps, and I would be shocked if Shroom Tech didn't have cordyceps in there. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. And then the long-term stuff. Were you saying that cordyceps has been studied, or that's just another one that actually? Okay, so cordyceps has some good studies.
Yeah, cordyceps has been studied for sure. I just don't know if someone takes cordyceps for 20 years, is there any adverse effects? I haven't seen any studies on that. It definitely has some athletic performance benefit though on the short-term studies I've seen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, anecdotally, Chris and I both have had good results with that. I look forward to potentially trying the methylene blue that you've been experimenting with. At some point, I wouldn't mind experimenting.
Again, just to remind people, my theory is that unless you are starting to have age-related mitochondrial dysfunction, you probably won't notice a whole bunch as far as athletic performance goes.
With methylene blue?
So it's not, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what it does, right? And so, but if your mitochondria are working well, I mean, I think mine are working better than a 55-year-old that's not in good athletic shape. But the bottom line is, it's not just by the cell biology. What happens with aging is you start to have mitochondrial dysfunction. Yeah, mine's slower, but it's not like my mitochondrial function isn't like it was when I was in my early 30s. Is my point.
Yeah.
So I think the more benefits will be seen anecdotally from the older type people that are just from the product of aging. So where someone younger be like, I don't think it did anything to me, but make my tongue blue, or make my pee blue too.
Right. Oh, that makes sense.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, you got anything else? Because those are the two questions.
No, man. No, it's good. Great questions today, Andrew. Please keep us up to date on that. I know we can't give medical advice here, especially Bill. but
doing it anyways.
I'm not either. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I know. That's fine. Yeah, actually, you could probably get away with it, and I can't. but still, it'd be nice to to know how you're doing.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard on the solo cast yet, if you listen to that, but we had someone drop into our gym that happened to be a listener since like episode 10. He's
Wow.
actually, he's asked some questions to us before. I can't remember if he had like a lot of the hand issues. He was a purple belt that um, was having really
Mm.
sore hands after he eats really well.
Oh yeah,
He was either that guy or the French gorilla or vanilla or something. Um, or he had like some soreness issues. I can't remember, but he's commented a lot. So it was cool that he happened to be in the gym and I walked in and Olivia walked in. He's like, I recognize these freaking guys. So he introduced himself and
nice.
that was pretty cool. So shout out to
That's
Christian.
awesome. Cool, man. Well, if we don't have anything else, we can wrap this one up, and this will continue to get better as far as the audio video quality, especially as you move into a more permanent studio. So
Yep. Hopefully the house is we have a buyer that is we'll see what happens as those things can until that money hits the bank. You don't really try to figure out if it's legit or not. But grapplingwithpodcast@gmail.com. If you guys have any questions, you can also DM us on Instagram. Whether it's health, wellness, jiu-jitsu, grappling, maybe there's a topic you want me to like embarrass myself and talk about something that's gossip, I'm down. So with that, guys, we will see you next time.